Welcome to the City of Columbus Special Meeting Committee of the Whole for Thursday, November 7th. The time is 6:06 p.m. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Pat, if you could please take a roll call.
Gray is not here yet. Johnson. Reed is not right here yet. Ryan.
Here.
Tylen is excused. Tome. Traxler.
Here. Okay, first thing up is to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. All right. First thing that we have on the agenda tonight is Budget 2020, Historic Land Preservation Committee. Carolyn Frederick is here.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to ask, you had all gotten in your packets a little summary and our request for the 2020 budget. If you wanted to kind of go over that,
Okay.
or if anyone had any questions up front.
Well, let's. I read the summary. It doesn't look like much has changed.
Correct.
Actually, it looked like it was exactly the same. Well, yeah, the same amount, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have anything you would like to present to us, feel free now. Otherwise, if there's any questions, we can let Carolyn know now.
I just, on the basic stuff, just wondering, supplies, which is pretty straightforward on that. I think one thing we should talk about, Mayor Tome and I had a discussion on this, was our line item for historic preservation and the water tower maintenance. I guess I would like to get a little more feedback for the group on how council feels about that one. Mayor Tome and I had some discussion on it.
Okay.
Whether that is something that should be put in our budget, being it's part of city money, should there be a line item set up within the city budget itself, for the maintenance of the water tower? Just looking for a little feedback from council on that.
Ed, go ahead.
I guess what's contemplated in water tower maintenance, I see 1,500 was budgeted for this year, but none has been spent so far, although it's contemplated that you'll go through 1,500. So what does water tower maintenance of $1,500 look like each year?
That was something that was new in our budget last year. We had kind of requested it, previous council, when the water tower was struck by lightning, made the choice to restore it. And so there were still some maintenance issues that needed to be done with it. So it was kind of just our earmarking, or kind of a reminder to the city to kind of please set up a maintenance fund for that, so the rest of the maintenance work, over time could be done. So whether that's something, the city would like in their own account. HLBC does have a water tower fund set up, and with one of our accounts it's a separate account just for that at Farmers and Merchants Bank.
But what maintenance do you contemplate? Is this 1,500 to be set aside and then built up and in essence be another maintenance fund?
Correct.
Or do you contemplate $1,500 in yearly maintenance expenses?
It was more of just putting some aside. Then I don't know that there's any specific projects that's all it would take, would be 1,500. It was going to be compiled for maintenance work.
Kim, I know Carolyn and Kim, we at one of our HLPC meetings, you were waiting on Kim to transfer this year's over to F&M Bank. Did that happen?
No,
Okay.
Mayor Tome and I had a little discussion on that. Like I said, that's why this evening I'm kind of asking about that.
Okay.
Is that something, you want HLPC to continue to kind of request? Is it an account the city would like to itself set up?
Go ahead, Mayor.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Carolyn. I think my concern there is that, as Ed's asking, is the $1,500 contribution looks like it's an annual maintenance item, and if we're compiling it into kind of more of a project every so many years, it seems that it should be a fund balance account that we can contribute to, and then kind of work with the HLPC with your water tower fund to have a project or our maintenance project every so many years. Otherwise, it looks like what we're doing is essentially carrying the money over every year.
Correct,
Which I
yeah.
think can get lost in the budget process every year. So I think it would be best for, if the city's gonna be making a maintenance contribution to that, just have a separate fund where you contribute a little every year when there's a project that's brought forward by
Well, we're-
HLPC, then we can,
Work together on that.
correct.
Sure.
Yeah, it just seems much easier. I think
Agreed.
the other issue turns into if the money is put into the budget and then taken out every year and put into an external account, I think that's kind of just setting a strange precedent with the city.
Right.
Ed?
Well, the other thing is I've I've seen other departments with capital needs, and we have a capital budget, and to me, that this sounds like if there was a repair that would be needed, wouldn't it fall into a typical capital budget line item that we would address in that year, as opposed to having a fund balance that was built up? That's one thing that comes to my mind.
To your point, Ed, I agree with you, but the capital projects we come up with every year, they have different funding sources, and I think that the intent here is to have the funding source to go along with the HLPC's water tower fund to make sure we have the funding for that project when it happens. Sometimes we levy for capital projects, or we don't. Sometimes we have, bonding or other things, but I think this is to kind of ensure that we've got the funding for that project when it occurs. I don't know what to anticipate for the next set of, tuck pointing, but I know that there are still needs that didn't get addressed
Correct.
when the repair
Yeah,
happened.
some banding and stuff that was recommended, but, yeah.
That's the one question I feel like has just been unanswered is the city gonna do these set up these projects, or is it HLPC? And I guess I don't know the answer to that. That's kind of the lingering question that's been out there for me. I just don't know. What's HLPC stance on that?
I think we would work in collaboration with the city on that. We certainly have our hands full with the pavilion projects, and then also starting on the Rest Haven bathroom renovation project and stuff. Some of that maintenance work, a lot of it was taken care of with the restoration of the water tower. But there were still maintenance issues that were needed to be addressed that didn't get finished.
Yeah, they didn't
I-
tuck point the whole thing, and that definitely.
That's correct, and there was some extra banding, a few more bands that were recommended to be put on there, I believe the council at that time was aware of. So we would definitely work in collaboration, or lining things up and working with the city on that.
So what do we want to do? I mean, how do you want to address this then?
I would ask him what we would need to do to create a special, just a dedicated fund for the water tower if we're gonna contribute, or if that's what that looks like.
It's pretty simple, actually. You just have to tell me whether you want this to continue to run through the general fund. If you do, then what I would do is take those funds and actually segregate them and set them aside so that they wouldn't roll into the undesignated fund balance every year. And so on the balance sheet count, like you said, you'd see a separate line item for water tower. And those funds every year as they be budgeted, obviously the 1,500 from this year, and if we continue to budget the 1,500, that then will be also then added to that budget line.
How do you prevent future councils from deciding to spend that particular money on something else?
You really don't. I mean, we could do a resolution which would memorialize the fact that we want these funds set aside each year for the sole purpose of the water tower. But if we got another completely different council, they could say, well, you built up $60,000 and we need 10,000 to do X, Y, Z. We're going to reappropriate 10. I can't guarantee that in perpetuality it's not going to get touched.
But if it was transferred to the HLPC fund,
It
would
would
have a better chance of not being rated.
That's correct.
Okay, interesting. I'm just concerned, because you don't know who would be up here a year from now, or 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So I'll just try to think of the best ways to see something through. Thoughts, guys?
if that's what we're gonna designate those funds for, and we're gonna make the, water tower improvements a priority. And I think we should at the same time keep it where it is. I agree.
So the options are, I mean, it sounds like we don't wanna keep it on. Cause keeping it on this line doesn't really do anything but get carried over and get carried over, but if we put it into either a fund account, is that what you called it, Mike? Then, with that could, within the city, then that could build up there, or you could just essentially transfer this to HLPC every year as well, so there's a couple of options, and I don't know the right answer, so.
I would just say from a budgetary standpoint is you have to at least recognize that the funds are contained within the budget. So leaving it within a specific expense line is probably appropriate until you decide what you want to do.
I see.
At least that would.
Any input, Ed?
I don't have any input on that. I have a further question when we finish this aspect.
I didn't hear that last one.
I have no more input. I think it's something that we may want to have another meeting on and decide where we want to park the money. But I do have another question for Carolyn if we're done with that topic.
Okay, is that something we can still leave on this line and address, down the road? And what do we have to figure out the 1,500 that's in there now by a certain time, don't we?
What I would do if I knew it was the council's will, I would set the money aside pending a final decision of the council. And if I have to just zero out that account and give it to HLPC because that's the desire, then I'll just do that. If it's the desire that the 1,500 we budget in 2020 goes into that balance sheet account, then it'll go there. So I can set it aside, Andy, so that it won't get lost.
Ed?
What does set it aside mean? Go into the contingent, in the undesignated fund balance?
Right, I don't want it to roll into the undesignated fund balance. What I would do is show it as a designated line in the
Okay.
balance sheet account.
Okay.
That 1,500 is actually set aside for a specific purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Katrina?
Yeah, I would definitely like to keep it set aside in its own line. At least for now. I would try to keep the money safe and aggregated.
Nice to hear your voice again. A little better. Ed, go ahead with you. You had another thing. Go ahead.
Are there any plans for designating further properties or districts in the city contemplated in 2020? Because there was an effort made to designate, which turned out to be redesignate, the water tower and the library annex. Are there currently contemplated any plans to designate further properties or create further historic districts?
Not at this time. Under, if we go from the water tower, we'll go to historic preservation's meetings. Basically, we put $500 or request that in our budget. We typically have 2 members that attend some of the state historical meetings and conventions and bring back a lot of really good information from the state. Historic preservation new projects line. This one, for this year, we're going to be working on, and most often, even on this new projects line, you know, it gets us started on some of these projects. We'll use some of our own funds or fundraised money to finish up these projects. What we have decided for this year was to get the installation of our 4th historic district, get our markers up. We also would like to get started on the renovation, or at least preliminary drawings and stuff, and working with an architect on the Rust Haven bathrooms. We currently have almost $20,000 that was donated to our group to really, people would really like to see that project finished up. We know we have a lot of, you know, work to do ahead of time, working with an architect and looking at the space and how to best utilize it for the building. So we're kind of excited excited about that project for this next year. So,
Are you, I'm just looking at the postage line, or I'm sorry, the supplies line.
yep.
You have 500 down this year, you're estimating 100. You've never really exceeded 383. Is 500, do you think that's a good amount? Do you think that could be 400 or 300?
You know, it could be. I would say even 400, you know. This last year, we didn't do as much as we typically do with our filing and archiving stuff, but we're hoping to get a little bit more of that back in this year.
Just like that, when you see the trend,
Uh-huh.
we like to try to find a happy median
Yep.
there. You budgeted 500 this year, and you're going to come in quite a bit under that. So, which makes sense what you just said. But I don't know. I would maybe consider lowering that a little bit, but I mean, it's $100, so I don't really know. It's up on what council thinks.
So, any other questions on budget line stuff? So I just wanted to, if you don't mind, just a little recap on our accomplishments for 2019. We had the refinishing of the ballroom floors done. We added the addition of a vintage-looking utility sink, new counter area, and shelving in that bar in the coat room in the pavilion. Additional electrical outlets were added to the ballroom, the stage. We now have an exterior plug, which works really nice, and the electric cart for outdoor events, stuff like that. We also had wiring done right away for security cameras. We redid our entryway garden in honor of Alice Schmidt. That was a pretty fun project to do in honor of Alice. We did the freeze board maintenance on, freeze board is that, it's around the top of the building that's got the circles and stuff on it. It's still all original on there, so we had some maintenance work and got that repainted. We did our second year of our CHLPC Summer Concert Series, with the addition of promoting some of our local businesses and civic groups. That was a lot of fun to work with them. So on the docket for 2020, we will hopefully have everything ready for the October 19th Committee of the Whole. A full restoration, window restoration project on the pavilion. We're hoping to start that in January. Just yesterday received the SHPO form back from the state. They're very excited about the project as well. We are working with an architect for a remodel and brand new design for the downstairs entryway to make that 100% ADA accessible, to be able to get from the parking lot and straight into the building. Exterior painting of the pavilion. We have our SHPO form sent into the state, so we're awaiting approval on that. Hopefully that might even make it to the 19th Committee of the Whole. Again, we want to get the installation of our 4th District markers done. We are planning to meet with architects after the first of the year on those preliminary drawings and some investigation work on the Rest Haven bathrooms. We've a lot of work behind the scenes on that kind of stuff. We've also voted to continue our CHLPC summer concerts, and we'll be working on our lineup for this year, and also again working with our local businesses and civic groups and helping promote all of them. So like I mentioned, a lot of these projects take a lot of work behind the scenes, months before we even come to council or projects get started. So I just really wanted to thank all the HLPC members for their dedication, their hard work, not only just on our projects but our fundraising efforts, our working with the local businesses and civic groups, and just to the community itself. I'm just honored to be a part of this whole group and how well we work together and get things accomplished. We very much appreciate your support in what we do for the city of Columbus and for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn, and I think you've already lined up at least one band for next year, right?
We did, yeah. Any other questions on the historic preservation budget? What we're up to?
Excellent work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll make sure I let them know that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else on the HLPC budget, I can move on to the next item up, number 5, Budget 2020, Fire Department. Chief Randy Keene is here. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Good evening. I've got an amended budget there to show you that just recently amended. What I want to point out is the bottom right-hand corner where it talks about a $5,000 carryover. We had received earlier a $5,000 anonymous donation for some equipment, rescue equipment, which we purchased, and the $5,000 went into a donations revenue account, but then it came out of our equipment replacement account on there. So that $5,000 would then be transferred into that account that we took it out of, which ends in 820. And by that extra $5,000, that can be carried over towards next year's budget in talking with Kim. So, any questions on that part of it?
Just, did it come out of a revenue line somewhere else in the budget? I guess my question is.
Yeah.
Well, we got the $5,000 donation because it's revenue, it's up in the revenue line. That offset the purchases in that equipment replacement line, which gave us the capacity to be able to carry over $5,000 from that equipment replacement line. It's the second to the last expense line in Randy's budget. When you look at that activity through 9/30, if you would subtract the $5,000 of donation that's in the revenue line, they've really spent only $7,000 so far this year. So 5,000 is going to be then carried over from this year to next. Sorry, that was a bad explanation.
So the second expense line,
From the bottom.
well,
Here-
no, I'm talking about the revenue. So it's the second line from the top, fundraising, or?
Yeah, it's donations. And right now there's 5164 in there, anticipated year end is 5359.
So that $5,000 is being transferred into that. So we're gonna have a total of 15 or 20,000 then for the equipment replacement?
15,000 for next year.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's less that you have to, $5,000 left you have to come up with for next year. So, as far as the rest of the budget, without counting the grayed out area related to salaries and benefits, there's been an increase overall of just $1,500 on a little over $80,000 budget without counting wages and salaries. So it's a little less than 2%. And I laid out pretty much everything in that narrative. If anybody has any questions.
Why'd you have to tell me you were getting free water?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know we were getting free
Oh.
water, and yeah, unfortunately, they went around to all the city buildings, and if you needed a backflow protection, you need to put it on. Well, we're talking more than just a little garden hose to fill our fire trucks, and so we had a fill in the front and a fill in the back, and the bill for that was $5,200 just to do one, and we abandoned the other one. Between the price and it wasn't really feasible to do it where it was located in the back of the station. So, but then they determined that the faucets where the garden hoses are were not on a meter. So then it was a matter of looking at, do we run pipe all the way from the meter in the back of the station to the front of the station, when looking at how long will we be there, which is up to you, by the way. And we figured we're paying extra each month for an extra meter on each line, But when we looked at that compared to the anticipated or the estimated cost to run the, another water line, we decided to go with the extra meters. And
Okay. And then, the computers that you're looking to replace, are you working with OnTech on that?
yeah, they've already been replaced.
Oh, they have.
Yeah,
already.
they have, yep. So now the budget, we had budgeted $6,000 to that, and usually that line item was $2,000, so now we're going back to 2,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misread that. I was.
Oh, that's fine.
I keep forgetting we're thinking 2020 and
Yep.
it's 2019. All right. Did OnTech do the computers, or was it the previous?
We got one from the previous and two from OnTech.
Okay. Ed?
I see in annual safety inspections in your narrative, you said you needed to bump it up to 6,500, but then in the new amended budget, you brought it back down to 5,500. Is there enough money in that account? Correct. In the-
Okay.
Good catch.
Okay. Thank you. Trying to look where we went down over $1,000.
Right, yeah.
And then we went down $500 in water, utilities, water, electric, sewer. We went from 5,000 to 4,500 in the amended budget.
We went from 4,000 to 4,500 for next year.
No, you went in the budget I was given in my packet. You had $5,000. In the amended budget you just handed me, it's 4,500.
Oh, for next year?
Correct. And since the safety inspection testing
Right.
was an oversight, I'm wondering if this is an oversight or it went down 500 for some reason.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
We talked about that.
Because we're looking at the activity estimate for the end of the year at 4,000.
That's fine. I just, since the
Right.
one was
Right, yeah.
an oops, I was wondering if this was
Another oops, yeah.
intentional or another
No.
oops.
So we're at 4,500, figuring that the difference would be the cost of those extra 2 meters.
Fine, just wanted to.
Yep, no, thank you.
And then on the other hand, your narrative report was very, very impressive.
Thank you.
I really, this was very well put together.
I figure it's easier for you to have time to read that ahead of time than to have me stand up here and
Yes, it was
talk to you.
It was very well
Unless you
done.
have a question.
I appreciate it. One of the best.
I did like the bottom line.
The bottom
The
line,
bottom
yeah,
line
yeah.
section.
I use
Because
that every
everyone
year,
could just
so-
have a bottom line section. Then I can go back and read the rest.
Right, there you go. It's the bottom line that counts, right?
That's right. All right, any questions for Chief Keen? Mike?
The line right below the utilities where there's a difference, there's also a difference between the original and amended for heat. 35 originally, 39 in the amended, is that correct, Andy? Or, Randy?
Forgot the
yeah.
R.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Thanks, Randy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next up, we have item 6, budget 2020, senior center. Kim Lang is here.
Hello.
Hello.
There's just a couple of things I want to, before we start the question and answer section. Something that will be an additional carryover. I already have a little over 20,000 in carryovers for next year. But we received a grant from the Columbus Area Endowment, a very generous grant of $2,000 for programs that we call our outreach programs to help to outreach to our community that can't come into the physical building that's the senior center. We have various programs that we've been starting to work on, and we're going to work on more in 2020 that will help us serve those people 50 and older who just can't be in our building during the day. So they've given us a generous grant for that. We won't use that funding until next year, so that will have to be added to our carryovers.
You use that for things like the exercise, like through the Skype, where you have a.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We're also looking at doing a memory cafe, which is for caregivers and newly diagnosed dementia people. We're doing something called Music and Memory. It's a program that we're going to facilitate with our partners in the assisted living environments and help people with cognitive issues have personalized iPads and iPods that will help them. It's a little bit hard to explain, but basically music is one of the last functions of a challenged brain that has problems. So using music helps them communicate in a different way and helps bring communication skills back a little bit. So it's a really phenomenal program that funding will help take care of. So there won't be really very much out of pocket from the city itself outside of my own time. So
That's amazing. I mean, it's a great program to have. For
it's an
a
incredible
little town
program.
Like this.
Yes, and at some point I'd love to do a presentation either during a council meeting or on the side that lets not only you but the community see what that program is really like. It's phenomenal.
Anytime, just let
Wonderful,
me know.
wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just an incredible. So we thank the Columbus Area Endowment for having us fund that.
That's awesome.
So that again is not any of the paperwork that I have for you. I guess I would ask first of all if there's any questions or anything in particular you'd like me to address or comment on.
I don't have anything right now. Ed, did you have something you're looking at?
Well, I was wondering, I see you have a new position at $12.50 an hour, and in today's labor market, do you think that wage is going to be sufficient? I know we asked Amy Jo, whether you think that's going to be sufficient to attract a candidate.
And Amy and I have talked, and we had both agreed that it is not. We would like to put it at $15 an hour. I also am looking to my part-time assistant. She really functions as also a social media person and our marketing person for the senior center besides my backup for everything. She's the person who actually puts together the commotion. And the Columbus Motion has really become quite an incredible piece that really is a good marketing tool for the city as a whole, but especially for the rec department, the library, and myself. And so I feel that she deserves that same amount at $15 an hour. It would mark here somewhere on some sheet. I have too many sheets, I think. Between the increase to notwithstanding any retirement that Candace gets, or is that what she gets, retirement and sick time? That's not figured in, but the additional wages for her plus the 10 hours that I'm looking for out of the part-time joint person would put the current amount that we have from 2019, which is 16,412, would put it up to 24,600, and that wouldn't necessarily all be utilized because again, Candace takes time off that doesn't account for 52 hours a week of work, so we'd be probably under that. But that's assuming she would work 52 hours or 52 weeks.
Yeah, I believe that there was support up here for $15 an hour as well, if I remember right. We were concerned that hiring finding a qualified candidate
Correct.
that we would want
Yeah.
an adult that would want to take a position like that
Yeah,
part-time.
and we really do need someone who is responsible and mature, able to handle different situations. From my perspective, it's someone who helps me in the evenings because we're, as I think I mentioned, the senior center is really being used as a community center, and so there's just a gap between senior activities during the day and what else goes on in that building. And so it would really be helpful to me to have someone to help support that portion of it, whether it be opening up for rentals or helping set up or clean up between rentals and non-rentals or other activities, and just be a second person to do that. A lot of times I run in and unlock doors, and then when the rental or the activity's over, I come back and have to lock up someone to help me do those things, especially on weekends. And so I think it's just those extra hours that are needed because of the utilization of the building.
So in our proposed budget for that position, it says 24.5. You said 24.6?
When I calculated it based on the increase to Candace's hours and my 10 hours.
Okay, so my question then is if we're
There's a
talking.
$100 difference.
Oh, yeah, I get it. So, however, I feel like there should be $1,300 more in that line, because if you're gonna pay the person $15 an hour instead of, well, $12.50
And maybe my calculations were incorrect. I based it on 10 hours at $15 an hour, and then an additional $2 and whatever cents for Candace for her hours.
I'm not even thinking about the Candace
Oh,
part.
okay.
I'm just, like, when I look at just, if you're talking about $2.50 an hour difference over 10 hours a week, 52 weeks, it's $25, 52 weeks, it's $1,300.
Correct.
I think that should be, we need to have that flexibility in that line, so,
Yeah.
you know, in case, maybe you hire the person at 14 and so there's room to, you know,
Sure.
incentivize in the future,
Sure.
but, or whatever you wanted to do, but I think you
Yeah.
should have that flexibility in your budget.
Okay.
Something to consider. I don't know what the council is okay with that.
Agreed.
Another line that I just wanted to point out, so under repairs and maintenance, the amount there, what do I have? Yeah, 16.5. So I'm not asking for 16.5. I have 13,000 in carryover funds that are gonna take care of the floor project in the senior center. So it's actually just an extra, it's actually $3,000. That's different from the carryover that I have for that. So that sometimes confuses me because some of my carryover are in lines and some of them are not for some reason, which I'm not quite sure. So the 20,000 that I'm carrying over is not all accounted for in the budget, which I don't know that it should because it's already existing money. It's not new money that I'm asking for. So the actual amount of line that I'm asking for is 3,000, and any project that I have going on is being covered by carryover.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, but Kim, I'm just confused. You can clear this up for me. So 16.5 is in that budget line, right? Okay, so
Part of it is, that I think we've gotten donations for floor work, which wasn't completely spent in prior years. This year, in the equipment replacement line, there's gonna be about a $6,000 savings, which Kim is rolling into 2020 for that project, as well as, some money from programming and the, education, training, and travel line. So it's kind of a combination of different lines in 2019 that'll have savings that she'll be using to roll forward to be able to help pay for the flooring project.
but the part where she said that some of the carryovers are included in the budget total, but some aren't.
Everything that Kim provided in her budget is listed there. The notation for the carryover for the floors, the unused carryover for the floors in the education, training, and travel, that will move up to that line in 2020 from 2019. The unused in the programming will do the exact same thing, move up into that line. And then the $5,000 from the equipment maintenance line will move up there as well. So it's a combination of all of those, as well as some of the donated funds.
Well, I guess that's not how I understood it either. And I have, but this is additional, so,
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'm sorry.
yeah, and I agree, this confuses me because those funds, like some from past were designated for certain things and they're still there for that certain thing.
Right.
So to put them on a line item in a different spot here, they're not accounted for correctly then. You see what
From
I'm saying?
Kim's original budget, we have from education, mileage, meals, and lodging that were designated for carryover for floor replacement. From programs, $5,000, and equipment replacement, along with, the others are for gutters, windows, and the roof, and then the grant proceeds and the donations for programs. So, from the original budget that I got, those were the items where you were pulling money from to help pay for the flooring.
Right, but they were in a separate issue, they weren't in my budget.
I think,
Because all of those items are equipment replacement, so so realistically, all of that should be in that account. If
Yeah.
that's what you're saying, you know what I mean?
then if that was the case and you weren't gonna use those funds in the 2019 budget for what you originally intended them for, I think that you probably should have budgeted it all in equipment replacement and then carried that total amount forward versus picking areas where you didn't spend everything and then carrying that forward. Maybe that would have been easier.
Maybe, but I'm just saying, like, so we're gonna need $13,000 for the floors, for example, on that line item, which is great. But the only additional funds that I'm asking for, that I don't already have from previous budgets, is $3,000. So it's not really truly reflecting what I need in that budget line new. So I
Yes,
don't.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not asking for 13,
Yeah.
16,000, I'm asking for three.
Three,
I already
right.
have 13.
Okay.
So, and maybe that's just confusing to me, but I'm
Okay.
looking at what additional I'm
I-
asking for.
It's confusing to me, that's why I had to ask, so.
Yeah.
it- I now know that it's $3,000.
Yeah.
And the 13,500 is.
Right, which seems like, wow, a lot of money, but I already have a good chunk of that from other savings.
Yep, and I'm not
Yeah.
disputing that at all. I think our senior center is a treasure in this county, and anything we can do to improve it or make it better would be great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mike?
I think I'm a little confused too. It probably all makes sense, but ultimately what we're gonna need is a budget document that shows your project in one line. I see where you're trying to carry things over here, but it looks like we're budgeting things, and next year we're gonna be taking things from 8 different lines for your project.
Correct, and I agree with you. And
Okay.
I thought that's how,
Okay.
like, I didn't put 16,000 in the budget originally when we talked. That's
For-
the number that came out. I put 3,000 because that's the additional funding that I needed for that.
And where did you put the 3,000? Where do you want the 3,000 applied to? Which?
It should be in equipment replace, or not, or repairs and maintenance.
Repairs and, okay, that's the big number. That's the 16.5 right now.
Right, and that $3,000 is for furnace maintenance, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The rest is, again, carried over money that is already designated for the floor, so it's not additional funding.
So if you're, and I have no problem if you're carrying over unused, expenditures from here to get it corralled into that one,
Right.
general ledger line for next year, but I think what we need to do is, we don't know what your budgeted amount is gonna be for all those other lines, and that's what we.
Correct, I agree, that's, right, I 100% agree, so
Okay.
we need to do that differently, I guess, then.
We
It's
can get-
always confusing me, because I agree with you, that's how it should be, but that's not ever how it worked out.
And is on the top revenue line, you have donations, you don't have anything proposed for next year?
I don't, those are designated donations, so like the CAE grant, which we never know
Okay.
how much or what we're gonna get. Or last year, we received an anonymous donation from a friend of the center, specifically to buy some of our medical room closet equipment and some things for the kitchen. So they designate what they're for, and so we wanna keep honoring that. Sometimes that's for that fund, and that's where it comes out of too.
Do you have anything that you're carrying forward from this year for a designated purpose that didn't get used for next
We
year?
are, we
Okay.
are. We are purchasing some more, medical equipment, and we are purchasing, countertops that we're doing this year. But the rest is going towards medical equipment and some items to help people example, in special circumstances at the senior center, like chair lifts for the seating and that kind of thing. So it's all designated for those things. We just didn't get a chance to spend them all this year.
And you already built that into your expenses for next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What, do you know what the balance is that you're carrying forward for the donations then to be applied to that?
So we have 1,500 plus the CAA grant of 2,000, so it'll be 3,500.
Okay, thank you.
Trina?
For the part-time staff, are we probably looking at an extra, 1,500 if it's $15 an hour instead of 12?
Right.
Okay, yeah. And then just wanted to mention on the part where we're looking over the, senior center use area, I'm sure the numbers are way, way, way higher than what you have, just because you have the seniors that are using it, but it's just such a wonderful community center overall. I'm sure there's no way for you to account for all the people.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's utilized quite a bit, and we do a lot more multi-generational programming than we used to as well. The challenge with that is they're not members, so they don't check in. So we try to keep numbers, and I do keep track of them somewhat, but it's a little bit more challenging because it's not something we're used to keeping track of. But the numbers are increasing every day with the number of non-seniors who utilize the senior center.
And then you use it for voting,
We use it for
Hey.
voting.
public information meetings for street projects.
The library
any other
utilizes it
things?
for any larger things. Rec department occasionally will pop in. So everybody gets to use it, which is great.
And is there food pantry too? Or is-
The food pantry is housed in the back. Our loan closet is probably one of our largest non-member used services. So anyone with temporary medical issues, they had surgery on a knee, for example, and our orthopedic clinic here in town utilizes this quite a bit. They come and they get to borrow chair lifts, walkers, whatever they need for their short-term recovery for free of charge. They just bring them back and we loan them out again. So it's utilized. We loan out, I would say, an average of 5 pieces a week, and that's a lot. So that space is also increasing. We're getting more pieces in there so we can serve more unique situations for people.
You run the nutrition program out of the senior center as
The
well?
Columbia County Nutrition Program is run out of the senior center. The ADRC sort of also uses us as a pilot program location. So we have meals at the senior center every day. For seniors over 60, it's $4 donation. It's a wonderful meal, and it's a good time for socializing, and a lot of people stay and do activities before and after lunch. The ADRC has our benefits specialist. It's a young lady from the county who comes and talks to people about Medicare and their supplements and the different parts of Medicare. Right now, it's open enrollment for the drug plans, so she's come 6 times in a month and a half. So usually it's just once a month, and she's been booked full the whole 5 hours she's there. So those are all free services that we offer to the community as well. Whether you're a member or not, you don't have to be a member. And membership is free, by the way. If anybody over 50 wants to come and join us, come and work out in our beautiful fitness room, play cards, watch a movie, all kinds of fun stuff.
I qualify now.
Hey, me too.
I had one question about the nutrition program.
Sure.
I believe we've had to review or approve an agreement with the county for that site every year. Did we approve it for multiple years last time, or
No, as far as I know, they renewed it again last year.
Okay.
It's a year renewal.
is that something we need to check on? Just
Yeah, they usually work on it this time of year and then
Okay.
get us. I think it usually comes around November, December time.
okay.
Because it's a calendar year lease. So they pay rent and have the rental of the kitchen every day for the time that they serve the meal on site, as well as the deliveries throughout not just our community, but several other communities as well.
What's your total staff at the senior center right now?
Myself and then Candace.
And then a part-timer. coming
Hopefully a
soon.
part-time, yes.
I just want to say thank you for all you guys do for 2 people. You just ran through a lot of stuff you guys do, so thank you.
Thank you for your support.
One more question.
Sure.
Looking at the part-time staff, the existing person that you have already, you explained that responsibilities of that person is for the Columbus Commotion. I remember when we kind of started that here, we converted from kind of the old senior center kind of centric
Right.
program to more of a community-wide thing. Is there any cost sharing between other departments like rec or the library to help with that or not? Or you-
Originally there was, and then I just kind of took it back on as
Okay.
because she works full-time or part-time, full-time for me.
Okay,
So it does come out of her salary comes out of my budget.
okay, all right. And then it says social media communications. Do you have a Facebook page for the senior center?
We do not, which I would like to approach the council about. Right now, we, between Candace and working with Lisa, we get our things posted on the city page.
Okay.
But as our seniors are getting younger, social media is becoming more of an important tool to use with them.
Thanks.
Any questions for Kim?
Well, do you wanna flesh that out more, that you'd like to approach the council about that? It sounds like you started to ask the council. What are you asking? What would you ask if you could?
Well, I would ask that they consider allowing the senior center to have their own Facebook page. We have enough social media followers in our normal group that I think it would help both seniors and non-seniors to be able to see what's going on. Because again, we serve not just 50 and older, but a lot of the community as well. Not that we don't appreciate Lisa and her being able to post things for us, but it's just another thing laid on her that we certainly could take on to post not just activities and events, but information that seniors might be interested in knowing.
Okay, thank you.
We can do that very easily. We have a policy, social media
Yep.
policy that we've created, but we've agreed to list all of the pages that we have on that policy, so we know they're out there.
Okay.
And obviously whoever is administering that page, there would have to be some oversight to it, whoever
Definitely.
oversees the page, and that they, act within the policy.
Oh.
But I don't think that would be difficult. It would be nice for you to promote your own
Right.
events instead of,
Right.
having someone else share them
Right.
for you.
I think that's something we can get on a committee of the whole here,
Okay.
pretty shortly.
Okay. That'd be terrific.
And I will admit I've missed a couple of events that I remember hearing about, but then couldn't remember when it was, and
Right, and we don't really have an easy way to find that out. We can look on our page.
did you have a
but
dance? Did you have like a
We had a-
country hoedown or something
We
one
had
night?
we had a 40th anniversary party, so we had dancing and karaoke and 22 pizzas and 100 people and big cakes and ice cream, lots of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And when we do special events like that, they tend to be pretty well attended. So 100 was very fun.
Excellent. Anything else for Kim? Okay, thank you. And Kim Manley, you have took some notes on some of the changes there. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim Lang. Okay, next up I have Budget 2020 Municipal Court Fund. And the Honorable Judge Ed Schellen is here. Welcome.
Thank you. My first time through on this, so I'm going to rely upon you for guidance on it. The kind of an unusual animal, the court is a separate entity, but we are dependent upon the hosting community for budget, for funds. So at Kim's direction, I did provide a narrative that went with the proposed budget, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Well, why don't you give us an update on how the court's going, and we can think of some questions if we have any in the meantime.
Just to be brief, we've gotten a lot of good press, and everything has been pretty much presented there. The court is going well. We don't go looking for problems.
That's always a good
They
thing.
just seem to come to us, and we resolve them.
Yeah, I remember us on the council, we had an emergency meeting on a Labor Day weekend, Friday night, to opt out of the other court, and we spent a lot of time at Alder Johnson, myself, and former Alderperson Hendrickson. Spent a lot of time and effort to working with you and working with staff to get that court going, and I think it was a great decision, and I'm glad that we did that.
I'm not here to promote usage of the court, obviously, but I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's there as a service to citizens, and I think something that came out in our presentation to the Rotary Club yesterday, you know, if we didn't have, municipal courts provide a lot of service to the citizens. I mean, over 5,000 citations were handled last year in Wisconsin alone. Most of the municipal courts are conducted by, say, part-time judges like myself. There are only 4 full-time judges in the state of Wisconsin. Madison has 1 and Milwaukee has 3 for obvious population concentrations. But without a municipal court, these 5,000, et cetera, citations would just clog up the circuit courts, which have to deal with a lot of things as well. Also, people would have to go to circuit courts to get their cases heard, and without a municipal court, it would cost at 58 cents a mile, which is the national amount mileage reimbursement. Just to go to Portage and back, that would add $33 to that citizen's costs. Just going to Randolph alone is $19. So everybody who's using the municipal court in Columbus is actually saving that amount of money. Plus our citations run, let's see, the national average, I shouldn't say national, state average, back in 2017, it would actually cost $100 more on average, anywhere from 90 to 120, to have your citation handled through a circuit court. So it is a service to the community, which I believe a lot of people should recognize.
Okay. Any questions on the budget section or narrative, Ed?
Just, you're not alone. I've taken the testimony of Supreme Court justices who've had to go to Congress to ask for funds each year. So this is a tradition that happens at every level. Just as to your question about your request for attorney professional services of $1,000, what do you contemplate needing legal fees for the court?
There are occasionally questions procedurally, especially starting up a new court, that we don't have the background or expertise to handle, and so we would need outside legal assistance to do that. We're very diligent in not utilizing it because we rely upon our peers to get most of our legal definitions from. But something should be in there just in case we do have a situation arise. It's kind of like nobody ever expects it to happen until it happens to them. So we did, instead of the 3,000 whatever that was expended just in getting things going, we did put $1,000 in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kim, a question for you. It looks like we set up a budget line for $15,000 on professional services, attorney professional services. We're going to use about 3. Where's the other 12 going to go?
Actually, that was, when we initially set up the court, being newbies and not necessarily understanding that the prosecution costs for the city cases needs to go through the general fund and not the court. The $15,000 was the amount we budgeted for prosecution. So all of the prosecution costs are in the general fund,
Okay.
and this is then just purely court costs.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. And then, are you using exclusively Attorney Johnson for your legal questions, or would you be using outside services? Because I've worked with Kim and she's been giving me reports on the usage of the city attorney, and I just didn't know if that was your intention to keep doing that, because I didn't know if that would be a conflict of interest, since he's our attorney and he works for the city. He's also a prosecutor for the city, so just like your thoughts on that.
You hit the nail on the head. It is not really appropriate for the neutral party, i.e. the judge, to rely upon either the defense or the prosecution's attorneys, ergo the $1,000 if needed for an outside attorney.
So you would reach out to someone other than the city attorney?
Ethically, that is correct. We do, however, at times for procedural questions, coordinate with the city attorney. For example, when we set up the hours of the court, rather than incur additional time outside of when he would normally be in the city, we're trying to hold court during regular city office hours. However, because trials, which we fortunately not had to resort to yet because we've been able to resolve the conflicts as they've arisen, might cause us to go beyond, our preferred hours. Ergo, we have to have some backup or some contingency in case those expenses are incurred.
So for those procedural questions, you go through Attorney Johnson, but
Correct.
And he charges the city, or does he charge the court?
He shouldn't charge us for anything that we're handling procedurally because that is moving that case along.
Gotcha.
If it's the city that needs legal guidance, then of course he does represent the city and he would be entitled to his compensation.
Mike?
I can tell you when the charges or the invoices come in from Attorney Johnson. They are broken out into different categories. So they're not just one list of things. That question has come about in recent weeks where there are certain expenses as to who should be approving those. So they are kind of broken out, not just a lump sum. So
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
I had one question, and I don't know if this is going to be a question for the judge, but more financial on the revenue side, where we had anticipated $38,000 contribution from the former court, the Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court city share, and we have seen no activity as to this. Okay. Obviously, we're not budgeting anything there again next year, but I just wanted to double check to see if there was any activity there. Okay. So the funding, the $51,000 is levied funds. That's okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. On postage, it looks like you haven't expended anything for postage.
I read that quarterly, so I just read it through September, in October. So they do have postage. There will be some by the end of the year.
It's 500. I mean, they've been in since May, so was it on?
I would say 500 might be a little high, but they've only, like you said, it's only been since May, so I think 500 probably.
I have to rely upon the backing of the ladies who really, make things work. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions here, Mike?
I hate to put you on the spot, Judge, but it looks like you're getting a raise this year. The original budget for 2019 was $7,000. It looks like the proposed budget for 2020 is $8,755. I don't know anything about how this works. I know that as a mayor or city council, we can't give ourselves raises. I have no idea about the state statutes or the court committee that helped create the court, whether there was a salary that was determined at that point. But I assume that by going through and adopting the budget, what we're doing is acknowledging that I guess we have to take action to give that raise to you. Is that correct? I don't know how any of that stuff works. So it's a judicial thing, not a legislative thing. So
Yeah. When it comes to finance, I'm somewhat, let's say, on the bubble because I don't want finance or money to influence judicial action procedure. I'm perfectly, I think what the committee set up originally is good. I merely in the budget put in the standard 3% increase per year because in 2023, my 4-year term is over, and that amount has to be attractive to whomever is elected to this position. So it's merely just keeping pace because $8,500 in 2023 isn't $8,500 what it is in 2019. So it's kind of like a sinking fund. The same thing with and I'm glad you brought that out, Same thing with the clerk's position. When she was hired, and several of you were on the committee, there was a range of $17 to $19, and 25 hours per week was allocated for it. Being frugal, we hired her at the low end with the understanding that when you complete your probationary period of 6 months, which she has done admirably on, she's also enrolled into an advanced program for training. This would be the time to advance her that one scale to the, instead of $17, $18 an hour. Now, in our budget, nothing was budgeted or line item for any substitute clerk or any substitute judge or security or additional time for trials. So having that sinking fund there is going to be, let's say, needed should these situations arise.
Could you define sinking fund? I guess I'm not.
Well, okay, a sinking fund, let's say you're a farmer and you know that your combine has to be replaced in 10 years and it's gonna be $10,000 to do it, you set aside $1,000 each year. So in setting the salaries so that there is that inflation factor built in, you're set when the time comes to replace or substitute for that person.
Ed? Or Mike, I'm sorry.
No. Ed?
I think the committee went through a fair amount of research and contemplation and discussion in setting the salary, and I will admit I was kind of surprised to see that it was going up already in the first year when the court had been in operation 7 months. So I understand your concern about setting the salary for a future judge, but I do feel that the committee put a fair amount of work in setting a salary that we felt was fair, and
The 8,500 was higher than some of the communities that handled a lot more citations cases, but we kind of planned ahead on that fact. I don't know what, honestly, I don't know if we have a say in this or not, so. I mean, we have a say in the total amount that we give the court. They want 51,000. We're talking about $255. So, I mean, I mean, 5-6 months on the job, I mean, maybe that raise should have been next year, but I don't know.
I'm not concerned so much about the dollar amount. I'm concerned about it procedurally. I wish that, I could build a 3% wage increase into the mayor's salary so that when there's a new mayor in 4 years, we have someone. Clearly, I don't do this for the money. I don't know that the next person's going to do it for the money. I appreciate that, but I know what I can't do according to state statutes, that if I try to increase the salary for the mayor, the next mayor will get that increase. I will not get that. So I'm only asking that question right now during the meeting to try to understand statutorily how this works. Since you present the budget to the city council, because there's no court committee to oversee that, to approve that, just so that the city council is aware that we would be approving a raise for the judge through the budget process is what it looks like, from my understanding.
Sure, and if I could address that, that's a very good point. And I believe attached to the budget was the statute that authorizes the move in the salary. I'm not looking for, anything over the $8,500, but just like the secretary's situation, if something happens to me and we have to have a temporary replacement judge, there has to be funds for that. If you don't, for example, the amount of money that we have actually paid the secretary is less than the amount that's budgeted because we have not utilized all 25 hours per week. There are times that we've gone over, but most of the time we're under. So I'm just making sure that there are the funds there should we need them.
Okay, that's confusing me even further.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is because I'm looking at it as a salary line, not as a reserve salary line. And I think maybe if you're trying to achieve that, maybe you do have a separate line for a substitute, or what was the
Reserve? Sure.
You probably understand this more than I do, Ed.
so to be clear, I would propose that we keep the salary at 8,500. If we want to build a reserve judge or replacement judge, substitute judge, fund of money, we could create a separate line and allocate $500 to that, just as a placeholder to see how much we use in a year, if any.
And for, yes, I agree. The clarification, we keep saying 8,500, it's 8,755 in the budget itself on the line item, so.
I'm contemplating we go with the original salary as set by the council.
On the ordinance, the governing body shall fix the salary for the judge. The salary may be increased by the governing body before the start of the second or a subsequent year of service of the term of the judge. Are we the governing body then? Okay. All right, I'm input from the council on this. I hear Ed where he's at. Trina?
Yeah, I'm with Ed on this one where it might be a good idea to have a separate account for substitutes, whether it's for the judge or for the secretary, just to have a little pool of funds to pull from.
Okay. Mayor Tome, where are you at with that?
I agree fully. Because the way I'm looking at it is that, and I'm not even sure how often you get paid, if it's every 2 weeks or once a quarter, once a year. I'm just looking at it in the budget as purely salary. So if your intent is not to take all that as salary, but to have a reserve, let's have a reserve fund for that. I think that's the best way to do
I'm perfectly fine with that. In transitioning from the joint court to the local municipal court, we tried to keep things as seamless as possible, using the same time. And let's see here. My concept of a budget as a business owner was different than how the city works out with having a whole lot of separate lines. There has to be flexibility because once the budget's approved, we need the flexibility of moving funds around. For example, I have a case coming up where an interpreter may be needed. There's no line item for an interpreter. So that has to be drawn out of my salary or the secretary's salary or some other line item for the court to operate. Now, if it's necessary to have a separate line item, fine. I just try to keep things as simple as possible. We eliminated some line items because they're merely pass-throughs where it's for example, driver improvement surcharge, crime lab drug fees, ignition device surcharge, interlock. Those are assessed to the defendant who is found guilty. Ergo, why put it in and take it out? It's just a lot of extra paperwork, so we're trying to simplify things. But we're adapting to however the city wants it set up.
I don't know, Katie?
This is just in response. I take your point into consideration, you just mentioned, but I do think transparency is important when we're in the public's eye. So while it would be easy to have that fluidity of just being able to use that salary fund for an interpreter, for a substitute, or anything of that nature, I think the transparency, instead of just throwing everything in and saying it's okay to use it out of here without specifically designating those funds. I think I'm for more line items in general. Your idea.
I mean, looking here, you have courts, miscellaneous fees, bank, etc. I think, it could fall into that, but we could also create one that's just court, special services. You may need an interpreter. You may need other things that we're not thinking of right now. So,
Sure. And dealing with government, I'm sure you're familiar with the term unfunded mandate. Okay. The court has many mandates, and to try to find a line item for each one would make a very extensive list. So
right.
we'll adapt.
Sure. Trina?
Yeah, I'm really liking the idea of having a separated, probably $500 funds for miscellaneous, whatever special circumstances that come up. Not exactly petty cash, but something where you can fill whatever need that comes up. But it's also transparent, so it doesn't look like it's salary.
Understood.
Mike?
To address your issue of having like an interpreter or something like that. Ed, under expenditures, the line 219 item, you have attorney, professional services, municipal court. If you take off the word attorney and put professional services, that changes the spirit of that line. I think you could use that for other things. It's, you know,
I defer to Kim.
It can be done.
it can include the attorney, but it can also include other special services.
Understood.
Just easier to track that way.
Yeah, I like that.
I certainly don't feel like you should be taking money out of your salary to pay for those special services. Those expenses need to be tracked through the court, so if you see a trend where you see more of those services needed annually, and you come back next year, you can say, here, I went over budget on this, we need to have more money in the budget next year, that's what we.
Understood, and we know that you appreciate, we're moving forward based on like 5 or 6 months of experience.
Yep.
I think that the ad hoc committee did a marvelous job in setting up something from scratch. But there are still things that you learn about that you need after the fact. We have done, and I think if you've seen the newspaper articles, done a lot of out of our own travel expenses to shadow municipal courts throughout the state of Wisconsin, just to learn and to bring our court up to a very professional attitude and very proficient results. That's come out of our own pockets. Matter of fact, 2 things that I would request that aren't in the budget is permission to, let's say, paint 2 of the walls in the court's chamber. Just kind of bring this color through over there rather than a bright yellow emergency management 4 walls that we're contained in right now. And also, while my clerk has a key to the building, I have a key to the secure office, but I can't get to my office because I don't have a key to the building, and I would ask for that.
I believe that's already been addressed with the previous city administrator. You had one and he took it away. So to me that was over. Now I don't know. I thought that was already addressed.
He said I should bring it up to the council.
Doesn't surprise me.
Okay, can I just read, just so I know going forward, kind of where we're going, because we've kind of talked a little bit. We're going to drop the municipal court judge's salary back to the 8,500. The difference plus of the 255 would come out and be part of the funding for that separate line for the substitute judge line that we'd like to set up. And then, because it's kind of the same situation with the court clerk, the way that Judge Schellen described it, I'd take $245 out of that line to give us the $500 to put in that new line for a substitute position. And then I'll change the professional services line to be just professional services.
And
So-
is $1,000 enough then? I mean, he wasn't anticipating, he was gonna use that out of his own salary to pay for an interpreter, so, I mean, he's probably gonna have more than one case where he'll need an interpreter over a year. I mean, my speculation. So that probably should be increased. I don't know how much, but I don't know what an interpreter service costs.
So
Ed, you might know, right?
Yeah, I think $1,000 should be fine for a year until we get more history.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had that down correctly.
Any more comments or questions for the judge? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, then I would like the council to bring up and to decide on a key policy that's, from what I understand from Patrick, he was uncertain as to what policy as to who would have keys to the city hall. It is, in discussing with my peers, unique, unusual. I guess I'm the only one who cannot access his chambers even though I can access my chamber, it's inside of a locked building. Not everything that I do can be done during the 8 in the morning to 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. So that's a request that I make of the council.
Ed?
Well, I guess.
I don't know
we'll
why
consider-
why the original issuance of the key was reversed.
Seeing that this is a budget meeting, I think this is something we should discuss at some other time, I would suggest.
There's a point of order. It's
Agree.
fair. It's definitely something that we can talk about on a future committee of the whole, or yeah. And then also the painting, we can discuss that as well. I mean, I don't know what the policy is on modifying the building. I mean, there was a peephole put in over there, and you did that, so I don't know why you wouldn't paint the wall, but we didn't. Nobody asked us permission to do that. I don't know what the policies are or something along those lines.
I think that's something that can be taken care of. We have, in-house, what we have are what we call work orders that we give the Public Works Department. And things that need repair, faucets running, whatever, and they will come up and take care of things. So I'm thinking that if they would like the office painted, I don't see why it wouldn't be something that during the winter months that we couldn't have someone from Public Works come up and take care of that.
Well, now you're using city resources for the court. I mean,
But they do it for cable, they do it for, they do it for the entire building, so it's more a facility than it is department. I guess this is the way we look at it. We can check into it, how's that?
Yeah.
Sure.
We're just looking for permission. I mean, the court is separate, but it's the city's building.
right,
And-
that's fine. That's
Right.
yeah. I think we just need to find out. Like, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were gonna paint it. Like you guys are willing to paint it. So as long as
It's
we
more of
get-
an aesthetics for our chamber, for carrying the dignity of the courtroom into the otherwise canary room.
it's quite yellow in there. Okay. Any other questions for the Judge Sheldon?
Thank you for your
Comments?
attention.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in and hanging around. Okay. Next up, 8 budget 2020 economic development CDA. Matt, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. How's everybody doing?
We're getting through it. It's,
So, a couple things that have changed since I put this memo together. One is as we know, our offer for 103 Ludington was not accepted. So, the line item that I put in there, I put $5,000 in there as a placeholder, really to do maybe a structural engineer analysis after we had the building, or some electrical work to get some service restored to that building. Right now, we no longer need it, so we can remove that from the line or from our budget. And the other thing that has come up recently is my wife took a new job, and we are going to be using her health insurance for 2020. So the line item for health insurance will go down considerably from what it was budgeted in your budget. I don't know if Kim, if you have the final numbers on that right now, but I would anticipate that when you look at the income on the first page, or the revenues on the first page, that using the savings, the reserve fund, to offset any, obviously that would be decreased by whatever the health and the and part of the $5,000 line item for 103 Ludington. Kind of like the judge, this is really my first crack at this. When I started, the budget was done, and then last year I primarily worked through budget issues with the city administrator when we had our bi-weekly meetings, so I haven't really had to go in front of council, but it hasn't changed drastically. I'm getting to the point now where I kind of have a couple ideas of things I want to do going forward, but this is still fairly consistent with the CDA budget from the last handful of years. So I don't have anything else to present other than that. Wait, one thing I wanted to, there is a line item for marketing. The one thing we've done consistently is we've marketed in the Mad Reps. They go out and meet with site selectors for the Madison region, and they do a great job of sharing RFIs for businesses that are looking for a home in the Madison area, in the 8-county region around Madison, around Dane County. And obviously, the one success story is we landed Drexel from one of their RFIs. And I probably get, probably maybe one a month at least. Some we don't have buildings or sites that meet the qualifications for what they're looking for, but obviously I respond to anything that I think might fit. Even if it doesn't exactly fit the qualifications, I always try to give them something for a site we have in town, so.
Well, you answered my questions already, so Ed, go ahead.
Answer my question, but curious, Andy's, and partially my question, but I'm curious why it is going down from 5,000 to 3,000 in advertising. And if there is extra money available, for example, lack of health insurance, would you benefit by boosting that account, if nothing else, back up to the original $5,000 amount?
That, actually I was thinking more because the line item, so I reduced it because when I added the line item for the property at 103 Ludington, I had to find some areas where I could squeeze back a little. And that was one of the areas because usually the Mad Rep ads that we go with are right around $2,500 to $3,000. So I wanted to leave money in the budget for that. So you're right, that could go back up. One of the things I also noted is, and I've talked about this, that Tourism Commission is doing some sort of joint tourism economic development marketing study. That's something that I think would be great because, you know, I know enough about marketing, but writing a marketing plan isn't my area of expertise. If I could get something that we could easily implement and follow and track and monitor, I could do that. I could, you know, easily implement it and track it and say, hey, we're doing really good here. We should keep marketing here. But to actually develop the plan is something I would like some assistance in. And also, if you look at our code for Tourism Commission, it says the Tourism Commission I can't remember if it's a should or a shall, but in our code it says that our Tourism Commission shall have or should have a marketing plan in place. So, and I've always thought having a joint plan would make sense, and that way you can share the cost between the two funds.
Kim, do we know how much health insurance ballparkish is gonna drop, health and dental?
With the buyout for health insurance and total cost to the city for next year will be $31.92.
Okay,
So we have about $20,000.
okay, so do you think between now and the next time we bring this up, you could get us an amended budget that, at least what I would like to see, is some of these ideas that we're talking about of either boosting advertising or this marketing study, and or could you use a boost in education and training? That looks down from prior years as well. I know you attended the Empty Storefronts conference a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Are there conferences that you feel, if you got yourself out there more, would benefit you as well as the city?
Typically, I go to a handful of conferences, usually the WEDA, WEDA. We're a member of that, and that comes out of the line item for professional fees. Our membership with that organization, and they usually have two conferences a year, usually one in the fall and one in February, which is the Governor's Conference. I usually attend one of those. I also usually attend the Wisconsin Planners Conference. This year was in Eau Claire. A lot of times they're in Madison, so years when they're in Madison, I don't have to pay for a hotel, so you end up saving money there on that. You're just going to the conference. So it usually, I bumped it down because when the first 2018 when I was here, I took a course that was $650, but most years I think it's going to be closer to the $1,000 or 1,000 to 1,200. So that's why I kind of bumped it down too, because I felt in the future, because you can't go to too many because you do need to be in the office. So you know, if I can get out to an economic development one, a planning one, and also the League of Municipalities, I've looked at going to theirs, but you know, sometimes you have conflicts with other stuff and it can't work. But I mean, I do appreciate the education and training budget because it is helpful to go out and see what other communities are doing, and then we can bring it back and implement them here or implement something similar.
As a recent attendee of the League of Municipalities conference, I highly recommend it.
That's what
And, so I would hope that you would take a look at that, and I appreciate your willingness to be in the office as opposed to going on training, but I think that there are potentially more opportunities for you, and we may have the money available, is my contribution to this. I don't know what the rest of the council is.
Karina?
Oh, I would definitely like to see your marketing and advertisement budget go back up to at least 5,000. I mean, I know that tourism does a lot of stuff, but maybe there's some different programs or ventures that you want to go for that doesn't quite meet their parameters, that we have a little bit more independence, just a little something to work
Okay.
with.
That will, yeah, we'll put that back to what it has been previously. Then.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Ed, how much is that conference?
I don't remember. It was like 260, but then hotel and mileage.
Well, I would- I mean, if interested, and I've gone to that as well, not the annual conference, but some of the other ones, I would recommend that, you know, if you're interested, go to that and build your budget to reflect that. If you don't use it, you don't use it.
as well as what you talked about potentially with tourism. At least bring it forward, I would suggest, and then we can drop it back if need be.
As far as the rest of that money, though, that 20,000 could go a long way to a lot of other places in the budget itself as a whole. So I don't want to spend all of it.
I wasn't looking to spend and
Okay.
build up to at $20,000.
Okay, Mike?
Just so we're clear.
Yep.
That was where I kind of wanted to follow up. If we're seeing that kind of savings in the healthcare coverage, where we're going to return that to, it looks like at the bottom line of the revenues, use of funds held in savings was anticipated to be 14,600. Does that mean we wouldn't have to use savings? Okay, that's good news. And that goes back directly into the CDA savings account. Excellent. The other thing as well, I believe that we should keep the marketing up at $5,000 if we were to do something like a local business awards through the CDA. Would that come out of marketing? Or where would that come? Because I don't know if we've done one of those this year, have we?
No, not yet.
Okay.
It's in the plans.
Do you think, yeah, because I'd like to make sure we've got something in your
I can't
budget.
remember where we took them out of previously, because I know we ordered actually plaques, and I know Keelan ordered
Business
them. I just gave her what the plaque should say, and I don't know I don't think that came out of CDA's budget last year.
We
No, we did. It was yeah. That's why we not yet. No.
we didn't have a budget in 2018. Business development and marketing, we didn't have a budget for. Would it fall under something like that?
The business that was a special line item, and that might have been for the James Street project. I'm not really sure. That was before my time.
What? Sorry.
That 15,000 was for an extension of some development
Gotcha,
assistance.
okay, yep.
I think though that you're right, I think the plaques came out of the city's legislative support line, which is kind of the line that, you know, buys the meals, gets the flowers when someone passes away. It's kind of that line, and I do think that the city pays for those. So I would suggest that if you are going to, you know, continue to do that, maybe we do recognize it through the CDA fund and create a separate line or increase the marketing and advertising to include a little extra for
It would-
plaques and things like that.
It would be nice if I've also thought, because we called it before the business appreciation launch, and then people had to actually pay to go. and I'm not saying you have maybe you don't wanna have it a free lunch or a free dinner or whatever, but have something where,
We could cover some expenses.
yeah, like have it either subsidized or something, because, as I said, you wanna show that, they are appreciated, rather than here, it's $10 for a lunch or 15, I think it was $15 last year.
Just a suggestion. If we were to update marketing and advertising $2,000 to the $5,000 mark, we're taking $5,000 out of the budget for the Ludington Street project. Could we, or Matt, would you be comfortable if we allocated the last remaining $3,000 towards the business appreciation dinner? I mean, that way you could probably help subsidize the meals and get plaques.
That might even cover everything, at that price point. And I have talked with Amy about reserving the pavilion for the event.
It's excellent.
I don't know
That
the
sound like
date
a
yet.
good idea?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased because I'm on the CDA, but I feel like we should be doing annual local business recognition.
One of the local businesses asks me about once every 4 to 6 weeks about those awards.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
right when I get my hair cut.
One more question, and it's probably not so much for you, Matt, but under revenues, the last line, contribution from room tax fund, we budgeted $12,750, and we are at $21,881 for this year. I don't know if that's a typo.
That's anticipated through year end, and that might be a little high.
Are you kind of running, just because he's a staff member for the tourism, running kind of the projected? Because I thought what we did was just kind of set aside an amount every year to go towards CDA.
No, it's 30% of the room tax comes here and 70% goes to tourism.
This is where the 30% is going.
Right,
I did not
yes.
know that. Okay, all right. So,
And the thing here is we've only gotten 2 quarters.
yep.
So there's 2 more quarters to go. So I think that's why that looks maybe a little high, but, if you double that, that's 20,000.
But whatever doesn't get used falls into the fund balance
For the CDA.
For the CDA. Okay,
Correct.
very good.
It
Thank
all
you.
stays within this fund.
Okay. Excellent. 3.
Try to
Let's
get
not
some
stop
more.
now. Anything else for Matt on the CDA budget? Okay. Matt's gonna stay up there for the budget 2020 city loan program.
Alright, so, Fund 260 is brand new. This is the, funds that we have, after we completed our CDBG close application. So if you guys remember, back in June or May of this year, we elected to, complete the CDBG close and buy out the loan receivable from Sursus. So now when they pay the city back, they're paying the city directly. That money is de-federalized and it's in a separate account in this Fund 260. And right now we have about, I think about $2,000 in there. Right now, at year end, we're projecting 3339.78. So they pay about $476 and change a month. They come in pretty much like clockwork on the first of the month and walk their check over, and they've been current. I'm in the process right now at the CDA level, because if you remember, or maybe you weren't around, CDA has always been the entity that approves loans or reviews loans, and then they do come to council for final approval. So I'm working through the CDA, especially now that the project that we were spending a lot of time on is over. The next big thing for me at CDA is revising the loan guidelines. One of the things, because the pot of money we have is going to be a little bit smaller than what we had previously, and because the money is defederalized, we can have more flexibility with what we're doing. So I'm looking at a couple different things. We're still gonna have a program where if you're creating jobs, we'll loan you money. I don't know if that will be as popular because, as I said, the loan fund isn't gonna be a high amount, but the two other things I wanna do, one would be a facade loan program, would be a low interest loan for anybody in town who's gonna be improving their exterior for a commercial business. So that would be one thing. The other thing would be a micro loan to kind of early startup businesses in town. So if you're starting a new business and you need that extra, you know, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000 to kind of get off the ground, that is something we're going to be looking at. As I said, I still need to finalize and have approval of the CDA and probably council of what the loan guidelines will entail. You know, see what kind of things are eligible and all that kind of fun stuff. And then once that's approved, then we can start marketing it and hopefully get some loans and start helping some businesses out of this fund. So as of right now in the 2020 budget, you won't see much other than collecting the payments we're going to be getting and whatever interest we get in 2020. So you can see in the fund, we're going to get just over $1,200 in interest payments, and we're not projecting any expenses. As you can see, we projected the year end, and that's just taking their monthly payment times 12 and adding it to the cash on hand. So by the end of 2020, we could start looking at doing some minor or smaller loans, which will be exciting. So it's just to the point now where we need to start finalizing some of those guidelines so we can have a program that we can help businesses. So any questions on that? And if you have any suggestions on what you want to see in the loan program, that will come at a later time. But I mean, feel free to shoot me an email offline, and I'll definitely, you know, incorporate them into the loan document. So,
Any questions for Matt on this? Mike? Do we need to do anything procedurally to memorialize Fund 260 since it's new, or that to allow the CD to administer those when it turns into a fund or
Right.
a loan program?
Yeah, actually, you're gonna see a resolution probably, I didn't put it on this last cow because it was so full.
Okay.
But you'll be seeing a resolution like we've done with every new fund, which we're required to do because of the Gatsby laws, that recognizes the creation of a new fund. And it basically says within that the purposes, the revenues, the expenses, and the equity all stay within that fund. So there'll be one for that and one for the TIF district.
Excellent, thank you. And one other thing, Matt, as you talked about that loan program, I noticed in the budget that we had $1,000 budgeted for a facade grant program.
that was under CDA. I think.
Yep.
That's actually the WPPI grant that I believe, right? Yeah.
There's a
So
separate-
in
there's a
the past, I
separate
know.
WPPI grant. There's a WPPI grant, 484815-000 for $1,000 that looks like we didn't expend this year. And then there's also facade program under marketing and advertising that we budgeted $1,000 for. Actually, that's actually, this is weird. It says 2018 budget. We don't have a 2019 budget in here. It goes from 2018 to 2020. Maybe that was just a typo in the yellow highlighted area, Kim. Page 25. Really? Oh, I've got page 25s. It's the second page 225. Right. Okay. Anyway, if we did budget $1,000 in the facade program, I'd like to carry that forward at least. It doesn't show that as a carry forward here. Was that your intent, Matt, or not?
No.
facade program? Okay, were you
Well,
intending?
it was the WPPI grant. So it was through WPPI from, I can't even know that it's, our Water and Light is a member, it's Public Power Initiative, no, it's the I.
Wisconsin Public Power,
Yeah. So they have a program and we've used it in the past for facades, but we've also used it for other programs. And there's some flexibility to it, and you're right, we do need to expend that yet this year. And I have a couple ideas, and I actually have an email into Anna Stevie, who's she works out at Water and Light 1 day a week from WPPI. So my intent was not to use that. I was actually going to see if I can just put that $1,000 into the new loan program so we can start building that up quicker. But I haven't had an official response to that yet.
There is a separate revenue line for WPPI and a separate line for the facade grant. That's what I'm trying to get at. So there's
Okay.
$2,000 there. I didn't know if you wanted to continue that facade grant next year with the CDA, or whether we wanted to put anything in there.
No, honestly, I don't think we've used it as a facade grant. I think Dave used it once.
Okay.
My predecessor used it once for a grant, and I think it got memorialized that way. But as I said, those funds have been flexible, and I know we've used
Okay.
it for other things. So,
All right.
yeah, we'll clean that up.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks
For
for
the
that.
final.
Any other questions for Matt on this item? Okay, next up, May Ward Fund, Matt. That's still you,
Is that-
right?
Wait, don't.
No?
Oh, tourism is on the agenda. I'm sorry. I printed off. I had my.
Budget 2020, May Ward Fund, and consider administration of this fund as requested by
Sure.
Economic Development Director, Matt Schreiber.
Sure. So
That's you.
We've talked about over the summer, and really, it kind of came out of the downtown beautification task force, is that we needed some way to kind of make the improvements that effort had kind of more of a living entity here at the city, and we've always had the May Ward Fund. I'll start by saying I still don't have any idea who May Ward Fund. I know Katie, you found that obituary, and I was able to Google it and find it, but I couldn't figure out if that was the same May Ward or not, and because it didn't really say anything about the fund. I don't know. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, it would be a very interesting coincidence, I think. There were just a lot of local ties to the
Yeah.
Columbus area, but her name was Gladys May Ward.
Yeah. So,
So,
well, and maybe she was the daughter of the original May Ward. Who knows? You know what I mean?
perhaps, yeah. I hadn't really
But
thought of it that way. Well,
at this point,
I think
you know,
Ward might not have been her maiden name. I don't know.
at this point, you know, I've kind of reached out to anybody who I've been told might know, and I haven't gotten a final answer. So I've kind of, I don't say given up, but really I'm not spending a lot of staff time trying to find out. I mean, I'm glad. I think the concept of the fund is a great idea, and I'm glad somebody made a donation to start this fund. I guess what I'm proposing here is to try to provide some transparency and give a purpose to the fund so people know, and hopefully we can encourage people to donate to the fund. So, and this document is intended to let people know when they're donating to the fund, what are they getting for their donation, so they know where their money is going. So you can see it's just a 2-page document right now. Please also note that I removed anything that talked about the beautification committee from this. I know when we talked in the past, I had the mindset that, well, maybe the beautification committee needs to come back to administer the fund, and I'll save that discussion for a later day. Right now, I want to kind of hammer what the May Ward Fund is and how it should be used moving forward. So I kind of have, as I said, 2-page document here. And I'm not going to read it word for word, but really I'm going to kind of hit some of the highlights. The purpose, talking about how completing projects that beautify Columbus make our community a better place to live, work, and play. And also, doing some research, it shows that a visual appealing community increases property value, attracts businesses, and improves the community's image. Thought those were kind of important to highlight. And hopefully, as I said, this document provides a transparent framework for how this fund will be administered. Really, the big ticket items that I identified there were, landscaping and flowers in public areas, trees in public areas. I put trees in there because that kind of goes back to beautification, or the beautification committee, because their main focus was trees. Really, if you looked at the old ordinance that we had in place. Enhancing the streetscape throughout Columbus. So that would be similar to what the Downtown Beautification Task Force did, where you're talking banners, you're talking trees, you're talking benches. Also encourage litter control by providing trash and recycling receptacles. And then I put develop and update gateway signage. So, when you're coming into town, it says welcome to Columbus. Really, right now we have a sign if you're coming in from the north on 73 at Meister Park. And then there's the one out in front of Pick and Save. Really, any other gateway into the city, there isn't an official welcome sign. And then I put any other items identified by council or the beautification committee. That's the one area I forgot to do with the beautification committee. So I'll just please ignore that. And then really, there's a couple things that need to be done. So education, fundraising. Did I miss a couple others?
Also, if I might add, you have in there beatification committee, and I don't think we're.
Oh. How did
I don't know whether we're in that
my
business.
word spell
There's
check must not have been
There's a
working.
separation of church and state here.
Yeah.
Mayor Ward was a saint, though, from what I hear.
So, as I said, education fundraising is a big part of this. Really informing the public of what the fund is and how it operates, and then also kicking off fundraising. I think one of the things I put in there was that we would use May as the month to do it, not really as a play on words, but that's when redbud trees are in bloom. It just kind of makes sense that that's kind of what I want to say. It's there's a lot of beauty in Columbus in May, so I figured that was an easy way to fundraise, right? Annual report. I mean, that's just pretty simple. It should be a couple-page document outlining what the fund accomplished in the previous year, and also kind of outline, like how many donations you had and all that kind of fun stuff. Then obviously a budget. It's pretty simple. You kind of have, expected income. You'd have your projects identified, and then the other item is just acknowledging that trying to find ways to complete projects and not always rely on DPW. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that if we're doing more projects like this, that we're going to need some assistance for DPW. But I just wanted to acknowledge that this fund should look to partner with nonprofits and other groups that could carry out projects. And then I kind of give a listing of potential projects, if people want it, like in the future, if the Grow family wanted to donate more banners, it would seem logical to go to this fund, and then this fund could administer it. And then there's other ongoing projects like, now we have the nice baskets and ordering flowers every year, working with Wanda and the FFA. We have the funds set aside for that. And then I put in future projects, and this listing's been kind of similar for a while. And I'll show it to Kim, because the flowers on the Manning Street Bridge were her idea, and I just stole it because I think it's a great idea. So the budget that we put in there, we've been at 5,800-ish, and all you see is interest, and that's pretty much all you see in the 2020 budget. Any question? I know. I guess really the proposal. I guess there's two really items. Is talking about the proposal and how we want to move forward with the May Award Fund. The other option that I put out there is you know, do we even need the May Ward Fund? Should that fund be dissolved and then all those beautification projects be handled, I guess, through the city budget or through some other line item? I guess that's probably above my pay grade. The one thing I like about having the May Ward Fund is that if we can encourage people to donate to it, as well as the city contribute to it annually, I think it gives us a good way to kind of always have funds raised to do these smaller, nice projects that help our community. Trina?
I'd like to both keep the May Ward name itself and also keep the funding placed in it. It just sounds so wholesome, even though none of us have any idea what this individual was. It just sounds like a really good name, and it's good to have a stable placement for people that want to put funds towards beautification plans and whatnot.
I agree, Trina. I mean, I thought maybe we should contribute some money out of the budget to it, but you're not asking for money.
Not
Even
at
if
this
it was
time.
$500.
We could.
Otherwise, I mean, it's just gonna stay stagnant. I know you want to fundraise, but you haven't started that yet.
I think probably before we would ask council for money, I think it would be nice if we had identified a group to actually identify projects, and how that happens, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I thought, you know, if people want to apply for a project, and then, you know, let's say it's a, you know, a nonprofit that says, oh, I think we should do this, and they have volunteers, and they apply for X amount of dollars to put, you know, daylilies in some park. I think that's a good thing, because then you have volunteers in place to actually help. But I mean, I don't know if we want an application form, or there's a lot of moving parts yet for this, I think. So.
Oh, sorry, Katie.
I just wanted to say I also really like the name May Ward. As I'm curious. I think whoever she was, I think obviously she shared the same values, and we should keep that name. She wanted to make the Columbus great. So. But as far as, I mean, I agree with Andy. I think we should maybe drop some money into the fund. These projects come up throughout the year, where somebody has a really good idea, and we're like, oh, how are we gonna bring that to fruition? So.
Well, even if you don't spend it every year, you're building a base, kind of like the water tower maintenance. And I appreciate that it's only city property that you would do this on, but I don't like that it's limited to city. It could be a county-owned area that we could ask for something, or Rotary Park isn't in the city, but
It's owned by the city, though, isn't it? I think so.
sure.
No, sorry.
You did pretty good. Just things like that. Just even when I have something out. I mean, there's like there's places all over town that maybe in state highway area that welcome me into Columbus and do something. I don't know. Just a thought. Mike was next.
So I was just, let me clarify. Any public space you're okay with? Obviously, we wouldn't want to do anything on private property, right?
Right.
Okay, I just want to, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, Mike, go ahead.
I like the name May Ward as well. Obviously, she donated money to the city at one time for a specific purpose. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is drawing any donations to the city except for the city council. I think updating this fund into something, maybe calling it the May Ward Beautification Fund, the May Ward / Alice Schmidt Fund, to get some attention drawn to this fund. And I also think that this fund should not be used as just us putting money into it and then giving it out. It should be used as leverage, at least 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 with other civic organizations to drive the project by bringing forth volunteers or some funding or an idea, rather than just coming in here and saying, this is what I want to do. I was disappointed years ago when some of this fund was used for the library and some of it was used for the police station, which could have been budgeted. I was probably the only person that voted against that, but I felt like, okay, they're public places, but it's a city building that we're already maintaining and we're draining out of this fund, which brought it down to $2,800, and the city put $3,000 in to keep this fund alive. I had hopes after the Jane Street project that we could get groups to adopt the tree areas down here, which is something new, to put some flowering plants or do some maintenance. I think there's a lot of those groups, but again, we don't have a group of people that can start framing how this is going to work and administering this and driving the fundraising. So I don't know how we're going to put time into this, but it seems like the only time we talk about this is during the budget season, and that's really it, because it's a city fund. And I also think that since it's a city fund, it's hard to draw donations to it. We have to have some pretty rigid framework in here about what we're not going to spend the money on. As you said with the water tower fund before, we were taking money and we're donating outside of the city to someone else for a specific use. This money, I think, hasn't necessarily been abused. It's only been abused by the city using it instead of going out and doing a beautification project rather than a landscaping project. So, Matt, I think you've done a really good job of kind of laying some of this stuff out, but I think it needs to be used as a leveraging tool for the community more as than just 100% grant. And I would consider a name change as well. That's my piece anyway.
Trina?
I was liking Andy's idea of the city continuing to put in a little bit of funding every year. I don't know about so much as a leveraging tool, but just for the city putting its backing into the idea of beautification and plant life. Perhaps the name could be amended to specify beautification, or specify something of like natural resources, or just something along those lines added to the main ward, just so it has a little bit more recognition for what the funding is for. It doesn't really bother me that city facilities would be able to apply to the fund, but I definitely wouldn't want to see that as the main usage.
Ed?
I would echo a lot of the comments the mayor made. I think we need to make a policy and a name change before we add money to this. I think it would be a vehicle to market for donations, and I'd like to see something formalized, and we have a draft idea here, which is a really nice draft. I'd like to see us formalize something and have a policy in place, and then the city can look at adding money to the fund. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse on this.
I mean, I don't disagree with that necessarily, but I also would argue that, yeah, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse with the money, but we have there's a plan, a plan started, which we haven't had before. There is a draft in front of us. I don't know. I just think it's something that could eventually run out of money. If donations aren't successful, as Maritone was indicating, it is a city fund, and we've seen things like this before. It didn't help.
Slide on first.
But the point of leveraging is exactly that, that if someone doesn't want to donate money into this fund, and they're a civic organization and they've raised $3,000 and they have a vision for something such as, well, maybe a butterfly garden down by the wastewater treatment plant, and they're willing to donate their time and labor and efforts to doing so, that we could match that fund out of here because it falls within the guidelines of what the fund is. Otherwise, what we can do is put it in the budget, or say, hey, Zach, why don't you put something in your budget next year so we can put a butterfly garden in down by the wastewater treatment plant. It's kind of the same thing if you don't have a partner. So I'm trying to draw some some differences within the fund here to get the fundraising and to get the leverage and to get to the civic organizations to have some faith that we're willing to work with them and contribute our funding to their cause as long as it fits within the framework of here. I would actually want to restrict planting of trees in public areas because we have the honor tree program. I think that we have a lot of trees that are getting planted, and I've heard Zach say during the budget process that they're actually going to kind of trim back from that right now because we have to put an effort into removing a lot of the trees that need to be removed the next couple of years because of the emerald ash borer. But I know that there are a lot of honor trees planted, so this to me would be redundant, where we would be funding honor trees for people instead of them donating in the honor of those people. The other thing, I think we should restrict the use of this fund for any city-owned facilities, for landscaping for facilities, because if someone wanted to donate to the fund for a specific reason, to say, you know, to honor someone with a bench, do they want the bench in a public area on a sidewalk, or do they want it in front of City Hall? You know, it's different than landscaping, but I think that's where you'll get more buy-in and fundraising if you start restricting what this fund is for, rather than leaving it very open-ended for landscaping purposes. That's
And I agree with that part 100%, and I think that's a good approach.
it just hasn't been used, you know, and my point is if it's not going to be used, we need to kind of recreate the program and get some attention out there and start marketing the fund.
And I think that since I've been here, I know we haven't marketed it at all. So, I mean, I don't even know if any of our citizens realizes they could make a donation to this fund, and I'm pretty sure it would be a tax-deductible gift.
And I would
we'd
be fine with throwing another $1,500 in this year to sweeten the pot, but you know, I think we need to keep it alive, but we need to kind of frame it up and market what it is.
So what I was trying to, I agree with that. I think that I was going to mention that I think, you know, this is a great conversation to have, but I don't think we're going to finish that conversation tonight on how this is going to go. But we do have the budget in front of us, and we need to decide if we do want to fund it. I feel like, you know, I don't know what 2020 the people in 2020 are going to do for 2021, but I would like to see maybe start a baseline, you know, 500, whatever the dollar amount is, you know, just have that as a line item that's always there, and it's helping build it. You know, $500 is not going to go very far on a project, but in 10 years, well, you have a lot more money, and you know, maybe you have twice that amount of money because you're getting donations from the public or other organizations. So I just think we should set a baseline and do something, just show that we're committed to fund it as well. And so you see that buy-in from the city and the communities is seeing that. Katie?
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing with Andy. I really want to see us put in just a little bit of funding just to show our backing. We'll probably have to figure out a couple of things for the parameters pretty soon, but for budgeting time, I just want to put in a little bit of funding. 500 sounds good, since we're not quite sure what direction we're going at this point.
Go ahead.
And I just wanted to touch on Mayor Drew's point as well. I do like the idea of the city would match any kind of, you know, project that group or organization or individual wants to propose, but I think we probably have, obviously, have to put a limit on that. And then we would have to have the funding in there regardless, right? So if we all made it, be up to maybe $500 at this point, we could maybe address that later. But match a project up to $500.
I think it depends on the size of the project. I mean, kind of like the tourism commission, we try to do the same thing when someone comes in is we want to leverage what they're contributing to the project. We have much more money in tourism, but obviously it's coming out of this fund, so the limitation is what's there. So it's whether they're contributing the fund, a donation to the fund, or they're coming forward with their funds and want to match for that project. That would be a completely different process because we would have to have an MOU or some sort of agreement before we could take the funding out of here and
even before the first of the year if we need to. Again, Matt hasn't started doing any advertising. The fund is there. It's dormant, you know, other than what tourism, I think it was tourism donated $3,000 in 2017, I think. So that, I think we're okay. We're in a good spot to start planning this. But I just want to see a contribution of some sort. So, Trina?
Oh, no, I just want to say that I really don't want matching to be required, especially at the lower levels. If there's a, troop of kids that want to do a huge project and they're going to do the labor and they, can't afford to buy all the seeds needed, I would really like for them to be able to apply just for the fund straight ends.
I think that Mayor Tome is, said it could be labor. Isn't that what you were indicating? Like, it's leverage. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
They're giving us something that may have a certain monetary value, they're not giving us money to do it, so I think that all comes down into the application of the process, but it's leverage.
You could consider it an in-kind contribution. So you just say, we'll say it's 10, 15, whatever. We pick an hourly rate, excuse me. And, if they say, this project's going to take 80 hours and it's $10 an hour, you're going to say, all right, it's $800. So, I think that's probably the easiest way to do it is, you have an in-kind, where they have to give you an estimate and, it's got to be, I guess, somewhat reasonable. But, I think that's probably the easy workaround for that.
Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, no. I guess for me, I'm just coming from the point of view where I work. There's so many different grants for the teachers to apply for, but hardly one ever does because no one can afford the other half of what they're asking for the projects.
Yeah.
And people have so many great ideas, but no one has the time to try to do the fundraising to get the other half. So just stuff doesn't happen.
So I propose that I'll ask the council. Is council good with putting $500 into the May Ward? Ed? Okay. Consensus says $500. And then we're gonna work on the policy. Kim, you can find that somewhere. And we will make it a priority to work on this, and not let it sit on the back burner for another year. We'll talk about it for budget season next year. We'll talk about it hopefully first of the year, if not sooner. If you're gonna do a project, want to get the word out by spring and let people know about it. Hopefully we can get that ironed out before then. So
I was going to say, I've had a draft document for a couple months now, and I was going to go to the October 15th council meeting to speak at the COW, but that budget or that line, that was filled and this got bumped, so we put it on. We were going to put it on the 4th, but then the opportunity was coming for the stuff tonight, so we just put it on tonight. So it's something that's been, as I said, since the downtown beautification task force. It's been on the back of my mind because we have to have a way to have those things live on, and we can talk about other things later. But like whether or not the holiday decorations need to go under here, depending on the level of fundraising, the success for fundraising, things like that. I mean, if we're constantly fundraising and constantly putting money in there, I don't know how big this fund grows. So I mean, it's just something to think about.
Yep.
So
agreed. Okay. I would like to move on to the next agenda item if that's okay.
yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Next up, number 11, budget 2020, and thank you, Matt, sorry. Budget 2020 Special Revenue Fund Parks. I'm not sure who's, okay, come on up, Amy Jo. All right, well, that's the kind of conversation I'm ready to have.
Hello.
Hi.
So the special revenue fund is just basically a place to place donations and to remove the expenditures from. And the only activity that I really have currently on there is the new park development for the Warner Street Park. with the fund of $878.81 that's in there. Enerpac will be making another donation, but in 2020. So we will carry this over to go towards their second phase of their playground.
Okay.
That's it. It
Questions?
really is.
For Amy Jo? Nothing? Okay. Wow. We should have had you come up sooner.
Well, I was also here for Kim for that part-time position too. I want to find out about that as well.
All right, well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, thanks. Next up, number 12, 2020 budget, sewer utility fund.
All right, I'm pinch hitting for John because he's not able to be here tonight. I think that, if you look at the revenues, we base those basically on where we are, where we think we're going to be at the end of the year, and use that to give us ideas for what we would budget in 2020. A couple of things to look at. First off, that in 2020, our first water quality trading payments will start coming in from the town of Beloit, and that's a revenue of about $60,500 in 2020. The other thing is that we'll be using collection fund replacement dollars to help offset the cost for Hibbard Street. So those would be two new things that would be in your revenue sources for 2020. Going on to the expenditures in the first administration line, the only real thing to note there that's different is going to be the fact that we are going to be doing a rate study again in 2020. The last one we did was 2018. And because we have Clean Water Fund loans, we're required to do studies every 2 years to make sure that our revenues match our expenditures and also make all of our debt service payments. In the plant operations, you do see a fairly significant change in wages and salaries, and that's because of some changes that were made to the base salary rates for the wastewater operators just recently by council. The other thing to note is towards the bottom, the third line up where it says other chemicals, that's going to increase about $10,000 in 2020. John said that's primarily because of the costs that they are running into for chemicals that they use for the phosphorus treatment. And so he anticipated that line to go up to the $40,000 mark from where they thought they would be this year, which was around 30.
Do you know, does he shop around?
Yeah, he's pretty frugal. He's pretty frugal.
I do actually, and the city has an account there, so I was just curious. I know they don't buy it from there though, so they have in the past.
Well,
I didn't
maybe-
know if they checked around.
You know, it might be one of those things, just send me the contact information offline and I'll
Oh,
share
do
it with
not.
John.
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay, all
No.
right. In the collection system, going on to the next page, there's two things here, or actually three things. One, they're going to be doing some updating to the GIS mapping for the collection system, and so John budgeted another $1,500. They didn't get that work done this year. So again, that's why he's putting it in again for 2020. The other thing is because of Hibbard Street happening, I put in the $18,000 for the clay lateral program or the lateral replacement program, just as an anticipation, knowing that age of that area, that we might run into a number of people that will want to take advantage of that program. I used the $1,800 mark, which is what the council had used for the past projects that we've had. So that really is just kind of a placeholder, and put in there just to recognize the fact that we'd like to continue to offer that program to residents, especially during the street reconstruction. The other thing is right below that, and that is the expense side of the Hibbard Street project, the utility share.
But like, Kim, does that mean that we're not gonna have to borrow for the?
Correct. The utility is not going to borrow for the Hibbard Street project.
Excellent. The other thing on the clay lateral program, I think it's good to have something planned for that project, but I don't know how many property owners are affected or how many run into the street, but I'd be willing to increase that amount because I know that the utilities are pretty old, so I don't know how many laterals would have been replaced
That's true. I could check with Jason and see how many homes he's got lateral, or,
I
you know,
think it's roughly 30, but I haven't counted it, but I think we may need to increase that amount. But we can work on that.
and that, just as an FYI, is funded by the, connection fees that we collect for new construction. So that's
Right.
why it says it's reimbursed by the connection fees account. In the lift stations, again, things are fairly normal. The only difference that John had for, under operating supplies and expenses, he needs to replace a controller. I'm gonna really have to apologize there. I don't know which lift station that pertains to. But that's why there's an increase of $2,500 in that line from what he budgeted in 2019. And some of the expenses for the lift stations in 2019 reflect some of the things that I think John had brought forward with some of the repair work that they did. They found where they had the older pipes that they couldn't connect, so they had to do some additional work there than what they had originally planned to do, and I think that was approved by council. Under the treatment plant, this last year, obviously, we had planned to do the filter cell painting, and then recently we approved using the remainder of those funds to do the first half of the roof work. So in 2020, the last piece of the roof work will be done, and that's what's budgeted in that line, as well as a small contingency, just to make sure that if they do run onto any other problems or there's anything else that we need to deal with there, we've got just a little extra money in that line.
Okay.
Undergrounds and maintenance, really no changes there from what John had proposed. Miscellaneous expenses, operating supplies, I should say, basically would stay at the 3,500. And that's really for grounds and maintenance, repairs, fence, mowing, painting, things like that, that would be related to any one of the specific buildings. In biosolids, basically there really wouldn't be any changes there. There's no planned large projects there in 2020. So you can see that that line is zero for the budget year.
Okay.
Billing, collect, and accounting is basically exactly what it says. It's the administrative wages for things like the administrator, the HR person, the treasurer, the deputy. You know, we pay the bills. I do all the financials for Pat. You know, because she does more of the payroll side. So it's kind of a blend of that. And then water and light does all of our billing, so we pay them. And that's an estimate I got from Michelle, but I think I might have to adjust that slightly once their budget is done. But that was an estimate that I could use as a placeholder at this time.
Okay.
Going on to capital expenses, the budget for non-project related engineering costs, I left at $35,000. Professional services for phosphorus and water quality, $25,000. There is going to be some reporting that's required with DNR and some monitoring that we'll have to do with the town of Beloit. And so that's where that cost would come in, and probably mostly professional costs with Rupert Melke. And that number I got from John and Dave Arnott. Debt service is pretty much as it is. It's the payments that we make each year. And replacement funds is really a looking forward to projects that we have and putting money away to be able to afford those projects. The treatment plant replacement fund is required by DNR, and the others are funds that the city had implemented and we're using now to do things like pay for the Hibbard Street project in cash. So it's used for those kinds of things.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So total revenues, 1.9 million. Total expenses, 2.1 million. So we're 152,000 short.
At this moment in time, yeah, that's what it looks like we would be projected to be. If we spent every penny. I mean,
52,000
have, taken a small loss, yes.
And with the recent outpouring of comments about the Hibbard Street project, I know that the council desired to speak about that a little more at a future meeting. If that changes, how does that, if something in that project changes, how does that affect this? What would you
Probably-
do with that money?
Probably what I would do is look at what the change would be and look at what we have for in the collection fund as far as replacement numbers. You can see that we've got some money in there, but we make monthly contributions to that line. I guess, Andy, it would depend on what kind of change. If it was a really large difference in the expenditures,
Okay,
then we might have to look at
say
a
the
different
project didn't
fund.
happen.
Then that money would just stay in the collection system account and continue to accumulate. You know, the key is that, the idea with the replacement funds is to be able to offset some of the projects that we have that aren't large enough to borrow for. So like the Hibbard Street project, or like the pumps and motors, you know, a pump and motor might be $35,000-$40,000, but that's not enough to take a loan out for. So we try to have the money in there ahead of time.
I'm assuming everything is happening with that project, but after the comments, there's conversations that need to be had on council level here, and you know, they were talking about how they need more time, more advance notice. So if that would put off a year or something, they would just still stay in that fund. Okay, well, I don't know what's gonna happen. I just wanted to ask in case that it might.
Under the phosphorus, do we have an active task order with Rupert Milky that's they're handling that through this year or next year as well? Is that part of the budget for the phosphorus professional
I think we're
services?
going to need to update the one that we have, because I think the phosphorus, and I'm just going from memory, task order that we have was to get the contracts implemented through DNR and signed. But I do think going forward, we probably will want some kind of a task order for them to continue to monitor. Because the other thing is we might have more farms come on, or farmers, or property owners that would like to take advantage of that water quality trading program. So we should probably have something in place that would give us the ability to, you know, put the scope of services to Rupert Milky.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense. Okay, any questions for Kim on the budget for this line item, this item, sewer utility fund? Seeing none, you have anything else to add, Kim?
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe just one quick thing. I did have budgets for all of you to take home tonight, and the word is did. But with all of the different things we talked about tonight, and everything that's yellow are changes to the budget that we have here.
Okay.
So I wanna kind of get a feel for what you would like me to do. I can give you this budget so you can start looking at things, but knowing that we've made some changes tonight, it isn't the final. And I don't wanna get into a thing where I'm handing you a piece of paper and then 2 weeks from now I'm handing you another, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It gets confusing. So what is your will? What would you
Well,
like to do?
let's finish the meeting and we can, if you wanna take the budget, it's up to the council. If it doesn't, it's not a part of this agenda item.
That's
and
true.
There's no
I'm
other
sorry.
Options to talk about that.
That's true.
So, it's just, hey, do we wanna take the budget with this on the way out or not? Mike, do you have anything else?
It may seem that simple, but I think what we need to do is there needs to be a draft budget given to the council at a certain point, and even if that's not up to date, we need to have something in our hands to say, this is what was printed as of today, those changes are gonna be implemented. I don't think you're gonna have to reprint the entire thing, but you can just put the pages that are
Yeah.
gonna be changed from tonight.
You've
But I
done that
think-
before, so we just.
And we don't have that
Take
yet,
the
and I
page
think
out.
it's important that the council has something to start from, and, you know, if you have questions on that draft budget, it should be reflective of the questions that we asked tonight, I guess, but I think it's important that the council has something in their hand. A working document that's got everything all together besides all the separate packets we've had over the last month, so.
item 13, adjourn.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.